Okay, thank you. Thank you. So that's one problem, the individual victims we have. And we have data, we have not enough data, we want to know more. We are busy also trying to collect data from several organizations who are collecting data, and that's not always that easy. But on the other side, we also have the barrier effect. So it's not only a problem for the individual animals, but of course, if you are an animal and you come upon something like this, you will not be very motivated to cross. So you have the fact that populations remain separately. And it's clear for the physical barrier, but of course, it's also for the lighting barriers an issue. And like you see here on the bottom, this is one of our big waterways. So this is the Albert Canal. And at this location, it's about 130 meters wide. So it's a big, big barrier. It has very, that's kind of vertical walls, you could say, instead of banks. And if you see the light green area on both sides, that's one of our Natura 2000 areas. So for the moment, there is just almost no possibility for populations to mix, for individuals to travel. So there's also no gene exchange and stuff like that. We have smaller populations. So it really is a big problem. It's not doing anything. Okay. So we have been working in Flanders. So I'm from the Flemish government. That's the upper half of Belgium, to say it easy. So we have been working on defragmentation works for roads and also waterways in separated projects for about 25 years. And a big improvement has come in 2019 when we started the VAPEO, as we call it. And it's the Flemish Action Program for Ecological Defragmentation. And the first step, very important step, is that with the installment of the new government we had in 2019, we were able to put in one short sentence in the government agreement saying that we would start working at the major fragmentation bottlenecks with this Flemish Action Program of Ecological Defragmentation. And once it was in a government agreement, we could start working. So this is really important that you first have the political backup to start working on it, and because then it's decided you can start. This action program is a cooperation between several several organizations of the Flemish government. You see them on the top right there. And this was also a first important step for this action program, because we have a lot of fragmentation, not only in the landscape, but also in our government, in different organizations working on it. So it was very important to have the right partners together and really working as a team to start looking at it, and not every time need to start up new discussions between the infrastructure partners and the nature partners. So we have this steady group who gathers regularly and talks about it. So that was a first very important task. We also started building a database of defragmentation. So this is a collection of all the points we need to work on. I will come back to that. We also got the promise we would get 50 million euros to work on the first list of 15 priority actions we needed to address. This was not really money reserved for us, but we really needed to, every project, again, we need to ask for the money. So at the end of 2024, we will not have gotten the full 50, but I think 35 or something like that. But the most important thing is we were able to speed things up and to have a more structural approach through this program. Very important also in this, it's very good to have a program, to have a structural plan, but we always need to have some room for opportunities and for acute bottlenecks. And with opportunities, for instance, we mean if some road needs urgent works and we know there's a fragmentation issue there and it's not on the priority list, but yeah, there are works being done, then we need to take it up faster because it's just an opportunity. and like the acute bottlenecks. We didn't have wolves some years ago. Now we have wolves, of course. If they start dying on our roads and drowning in our canals, we have to act upon that. So our database of defragmentation is, for the moment, it's our engine for our action program. So what do? We have a lot of studies, we have a lot of reports for Natura 2000 areas, the species protection programs, also all our expert knowledge, the fauna victims, also the policy, the guidelines, everything. We put it together in this database in which we have all the points we need to work on, gather all the information. And then we have some criteria which we use to prioritize. So we cook it up in the database, and out come a prioritized list taking in use these criteria. So we know which points we have to address first. We make it a 5-year investment program for the next program period. And we always leave this room for opportunities and acute bottlenecks. I started by saying this is how we work now. We are evaluating this and we are looking for an even better approach, because this works, but it's difficult because we are too busy comparing points to points, and we need more like a real spatial vision of creating these corridors throughout Belgium and fulfilling this Natura 2000 network and connections throughout Flanders. Okay, so in this first list of VAPEO, we did some, and we're still building, we're busy building, some nice projects and all about defragmentation of roads. So here it was really focused in this first program period on roads. So you see some eco-valleys, some eco-ducts. This is like we call it a roadside bridge, Beddenbrug in Dutch. So it's like an existing bridge that wasn't used very much, wasn't a lot of traffic on it. So we changed it a bit. So we had some more possibilities for fauna passages. And this is the same thing with a tunnel. So an existing tunnel which was built. These are images of a wild detection system in which the traffic slows down if an animal is detected. And of course, we have the so this is an eco-valley we are building. This is an eco-valley that has already been built. We're building this ecoduct, So we're still very busy fulfilling the projects. But now I'm using an image from our neighbors of the Netherlands, because we like it and we haven't have our own image that's as good as this one. Defragmentation isn't something that you only need to do around roads. If you look at this landscape picture with all elements combined, you see, for instance, you have the road here, but often next to a road parallel to it, you can also have a railway, or you can have a canal, and all these things, you have to take them into account together. And on this picture, you see the fragment, so the barriers, but you also see all the possible solutions, like the eco-ducts, or if it goes underneath the eco-tunnels, the eco-culverts, these roadside bridges, so which are half for traffic, half for nature, the tree bridges and the hopovers, landscape connections. So we also need to make sure we have the stepping stones or the real landscape borders connecting everything. Also, you see the importance of putting tree trunks, rocks, or other hiding places on top of these eco-ducts. Eco fences, very important. So every time we do defragmentation works on roads or railways, we put up eco fences, and the animal escapes in the canals. So this is kind of an image combining everything. In an ideal world, everything would look like this. And so we do want to broaden our scope for the next program period. We are now writing the program, and we do want to broaden our scope from only a structural approach for the roads to also structural approach for the waterways. And we're also working on the railways and the landscape connections. So this is kind of our time scheme we want to meet. So we had the VAPEO, so the action program, the first track about roads. We had our first list we were working on, and we want to continue this to a second list, a third list, to make this really a rolling program. We have the second track about the waterways. We are very busy organizing, preparing, also doing some works. We call it quick wins. Wherever we can find money for the moment, we start to build something. So we don't only plan, but we also make the difference on the in the landscape. And we do want, starting from 2025, really have this structural approach for the waterways and continue on parallel with the roads. And the same, but a little slower, we are preparing for the railways and for the landscape connectivity. To zoom in on our waterways, this is a map of all the navigable waterways in Flanders. So it's a lot. And these are the ones we have, of course, other rivers and stuff, but these are the ones boats can go on. And we have two kinds, two major categories. We have the ones natural rivers that have been heavily modified, so boats can on it, so they undergone substantial physical alterations. And now we really have the really artificial water. So completely man-made to have the necessary connections for transport by boats. So these are a few images, how they look like. If they were once natural rivers or not is not really very important for the fragmentating aspect, but in many cases, in all cases, we have channel alteration, meaning they have been straightened, widened, and deepened. We have the in-channel structures, which are barriers across the waterway, so like locks and piers. And we have artificial bank reinforcement. So the sides of these canals are almost every time vertical. We have different bank reinforcement. Sometimes it's just a steep bank. Sometimes it's mostly vertical. It can be concrete. It can be wood. But it's very difficult for animals to climb out of. And we have the physical waves and currents due to navigation of ships. So you can see for an animal, these structures are really a problem because most animals can swim rather well. So they see water, they see nature across, they think, oh, okay, I will just swim over. It's not that far. They go in the water, but they cannot climb out. So that's a big difference because roads, of course, are also very dangerous, but sometimes in roads you have less traffic at night, so they can be able to cross. In these canals, it's almost always a dead drop. So it's very difficult. And you only have like the structures where we already have bridges and something like that, where we have these former exit spaces where they can come out. And to give you an idea, so of course, amongst the animals, the victims we find, the drowning victims, we have a lot of roe deer, hares, hedgehogs, so the common animals, let's say. But we also had a wolf drowning, and we even have beavers drowning. So if your beavers are drowning, then you have a problem. And this is just because they cannot climb out, and then even the beaver gets exhausted and can drown. Which are the possible defragmentation measures linked to these waterways? So the first one is if a bridge is going over the waterway, make sure animals can pass underneath. So you have different kinds of fauna underpasses. This is a way. This is another structure with also water going underneath. So we have all kinds of, but it's a very, very important issue. Whenever a bridge is being built over this waterway, make sure the banks continue, because a lot of animals just follow these banks of the waterway. And if they have to climb onto the road, you have a lot of victims. Related to this, it's also very important to think about nature inclusive measures underneath bridges, because also like bats, birds follow these corridors, and you have the simple constructions, and I think in Belgium we mainly have these simple constructions, like at the Oosterweel project. Koen yesterday, Koen Maas from Sweco, yesterday also showed in his presentation, there's a lot of nesting boxes and opportunities for bats and birds included in building the new bridges. Can also be easy constructions, but we are looking into developing this further. And I found this nice example from the Netherlands, the Amstelstroom Bridge, where it's really included in the material, in the construction material, to have these nesting opportunities and rooms that spaces that can be used by bats. So important to think about this. Then we have fish ladder constructions. So this is really all kinds of constructions where for fish, of course. So where they follow the waterways and they need to be able to cross the crossing structures like the locks pairs. So here you see some images about this. I have to state that in our Flemish Action Program for Defragmentation, the fish ladders aren't included because that's really a separate organization that is working on this, specifically on the fish connections. Then you have the fish spawning areas and refuges. So it's really like parallel constructions on the bottom. Next to the waterway, where the water is still, you don't have all these currents, no ships passing through, vegetation, so places fish to spawn and water birds and stuff like that. And why is this important for defragmentation? Because in these unnatural waterways, there isn't a lot of possibility for spawning. And so if populations want to use the waterways to go from a natural river to another connection, if they have these stepping stones, it's like stepping stones for fish along the canals, then the populations can spread and you can have some genetic exchange between further along populations. If you don't have it, the distance is too wide and populations will never mix. So that's why we also call it a defragmentation measure. We can also have this in projects that weren't meant to be fish spawning areas, but these are some images from the Sigma plan. So it's a major program in Flanders, and it's specifically aimed at the flooding. So to prevent flooding, to have more water berging retention. Yeah. So, but of course, these kind of structures are also ideal for fish spawning. So they also fulfill this aspect. What we also have is that we look at these canals with very unnatural banks and I call it a local restoration of natural banks, so that we just look at pieces where it can be done. We cannot do it everywhere, because if ships need to dock and there's a safety issue, if ships need to cross and there isn't enough space and things like that. But where it is possible, we try to restore parts of natural banks so animals can come in and go out. And here's also with the combination that there's more still water around this bank. And now we really have the thing we do the most, because in a lot of situations we don't have a lot of room and stuff like that. This is the easiest to do, and even this we cannot do it everywhere. It's the really fauna exit constructions or the technical solutions to make something that looks like a natural bank. So where animals, you see it here clearly as well, they cannot come up this concrete wall, but then we make like an opening they can swim into, and then you have these ladders or slopes that they can climb onto, and you have all different kinds. It can go in front of the bank, it can come into the bank, it can be more natural, and we have all kinds of them. And then we have what we call the fauna ladder, so it's even more easy, something we put on, just hang on the sides of locations. We know a lot of animals are drowning. And also here we have a lot of different models, sizes, and it's just, yeah, if you know, for instance, it's only for beaver or otter, it can be smaller. If you know a lot of deer are drowning there, it's bigger and so on. Another defragmentation measure is bridges with an eco passage on top. So this is, for instance, a nice project, the Horckmans in Schoten. And this is, you only see the bridge here, but of course there's a complete green zone following eco-fences guiding the animals towards this passage. And this is another example I found also from the Netherlands, where they have the normal bridge, but then they put the eco-passage side from it. Everything. What we don't have it in Belgium. We have no idea if someone else has it around the world. It's really a full-scale ecoduct over a waterway. So that's one of the questions I want to ask you later. If someone has already built this, a real full-scale ecoduct, so this is just over a road. This is ecoduct Kempegrens in Belgium. It's really on the border of Belgium and the Netherlands. But it would be a possibility for waterways. We haven't done it yet, but and this is an even more expensive and complicated structure in which you bring the canal over the landscape. And so this is an example of the canal bridge du Sar in La Louvière in Belgium. And this is another example from Germany. But these are very expensive constructions. So you go in the hundreds of millions for constructing something like this. You don't have the money, so it will not be easy to do it. But I just wanted to show you to have the full scale of all the measures that are possible. We have some differences between working on defragmentation of roads and waterways. And the major issue is the dual character of waterways. So it's a barrier for most species, but it's also a habitat for fish and water birds. And that's a very, very big difference. Because if you have a road, animals don't need to be on the road. You just have to keep them off the road. So fencing and guiding them to a crossing, you can do that. It's rather easy. I know it's not easy, but it's a little more easy in theory. But we cannot put up fencing along all our waterways, because then our water birds who use the canals will come into problems. So it's a difficult discussion. That's a logical consequence of this is, if we make these fauna exits or other measures, we need to make more of them, because we cannot guide animals towards it. So we need to be sure that they reach one. And especially when they are in the water drowning, we cannot say we have to guide them to an exit 1 kilometer further. So you need to have numerous solutions. Okay, so this was the introduction. And now I just want to start doing some group. But in planning this session, I thought of, Katja, you can still wait a bit, I will tell. In planning this session, I asked the organization here, okay, I want to do this interactive session. It's really nice. I can do this. But can you show me how the room looks like? What possibilities are? Can I put different tables with posters or something like it? And I got this picture of the room you're sitting in now, saying it's a capacity of 56 people. The chairs are locked to the ground, so it's not a lot of possibilities to this. So the first idea of sitting around some tables and brainstorming together, I had to cancel that idea. I did consider going for the walls and the windows, putting up some things there, but we are many people today. But if the room was full, this would also be problematic to walk around. Then I considered going fully digital, but I know all these apps like MiroBoard and things can give a lot of problems. I wasn't feeling like doing troubleshooting all the time. I'm not good technical, so I decided we would go back to the basics. And so my lovely colleague over there will be handing out some simple basic papers right now. So we are going to work on paper. And we will be asking you to work with us together on the paper, but we will be asking the papers back at the end of the session. So we can put all the input together and give it back to everyone who writes. You can fill in the first field in first slide. Does everyone have a pen? Everyone has a pen? So you can start by filling in your name. Your email address is the most important thing of all. So write it very clearly. And besides your personal info on top, you can also check the boxes if you agree that we use this information for further collaboration in the field of defragmentation of waterways. And also another box you can check if you would like to receive the report of this workshop, so which we gather all the input from today. I will just give you a minute. It's quiet now, I can drink. Okay, is everybody ready? Just no. You can already see my email address, but it's also on the last slide. And if you want, you can just rip that part off and then have my department. I will go to this slide already. Just, I would really like to know which countries are present in the room. So you already filled it in, but it would be nice if everyone could say which countries are presented here. Well, or if they shout it loud enough, it's also okay. So of course we have Belgium. Who else is present? Sweden. Now, what? Czechia, yeah. Wales, France, Denmark. Ah, well, Switzerland, Laos, Taiwan, South Korea. Yeah, that's it. Okay, thank you. Interesting to have in the room with us. Okay, on the next slide, you have some questions and maybe you can fill it in, but I will also ask you to raise your hands. Who here has waterways with strong human influence in their country? So, yeah? Yeah. No, it's for ships. It's for, yeah. Yeah, we have both. Yeah, we have both. So I said at the beginning, so we have the natural rivers that are altered for ships, but also the completely artificial human-made constructions to be able to connect you. Okay, yeah, yeah. So both of them. Yeah, sorry, didn't understand the question. So, yeah, yeah. So, yeah. So both. Yeah, sorry. See, that's why it's a group work. Everyone needs to help me understand. Okay, so who has these unnatural waterways that are a problem for animals? So, okay, most people do. And do you also have real proof or data that these waterways are a barrier for nature in your country? So you have drowning victims, you know it's a problem for connecting habitats, or it's hard to say. But you can also, if you think it's possible, you can also say yes here. Yeah, also possible. Yeah. And who here has already installed defragmentation measures for waterways? So we have them in the Netherlands, in Belgium, in Czech. Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, 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 it's very good. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So animals are able to climb in and out. Yeah. 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 Okay. Yes, you want? Yeah. 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 You can also write comments with it. So you can ask, in our country, it is this, everything is interesting to know for us. So that's like the final question is, do you have a structural approach for defragmentation of waterways in your country? I also didn't stay yet, state yes or no. I said we're planning to, so you can write everything you want. It's not, it are yes or no question, but you don't have to ask. Okay, so we continue. Here I just repeat some of the pictures I have used during the introduction, just to ask what you have in your country, and if there are good examples, remarks about this, tips you can give us, and something like that. So the first is that, yeah, the easiest thing, let us say, just when you build bridges across waterways, you make sure there are fauna underpasses. So, and does anyone have any special examples about this, or something you can just put your hand up and tell? Nothing? Okay. So I think it is the easiest. Then the second, the fish ladder constructions. Who has those in their country? You do? And any special examples? Or yeah.
Also, for the first, I would say yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But and so them.
Okay. Yeah.
So maybe if you are interested more in details,
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Ask colleagues.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not guy, so
yeah. Same for me.
We are building it. We are building it.
Yeah. Yeah, this for all the questions would be very interesting if you have good example, if you can really, if you can fill in, we have like tens of them, or some of them, or we are, and if you have names, or if I can contact you to get more information. Is yeah. Yeah, yeah. It's like the culverts, then the eco culvert. So like, yeah, 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 yeah. It is. Yeah, yeah. So that's the first situation. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. It's true. That's for all. That's indeed. That's also for the natural. Okay, so and the last one, so this really designed fish spawning areas and refuges built next to these unnatural formed waterways. Does anyone have these or good examples or information about this? Because something, for instance, we are struggling with, and I think that's typical, is that, like I said, so the fish migration in our country is completely a different organization, and I heard from you too. It's separate work from. We are working on this really defragmentation of the waterways. But then, for instance, what we see now is that we have a lot of these fish refuges built for the fish, but still an animal, a land animal getting into trouble in the water cannot climb out at this location, and that's really a shame. Because you build something especially for nature, but it's only aimed at some species and other species cannot benefit from it. But it is difficult because you have, with these crossing ships, you have the waves and the currents. And for the fish spawning areas, it really needs to be still water. So the inlets, the doors to this room are underwater. So fish can go underwater and there are the openings. But once we make it like open, so animals can also swimming in it and climb out, then it's less okay for the fish. So this is like also an issue we are looking for solutions. So if anyone has this combined thing like that works for fish spawning and also, yeah.
Let's say in our country, in recent years, they somehow on the border with Austria, between Czech Republic and Austria, there is the Thaya River, and it was in 40, 50 years ago. Naturally, it was meandering. Later, it was done straight, and now they are once more reconnecting some meanders, and some of them are connecting on both sides, but some of them only on one side. So somehow can be like this. So I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Because it's not aiming primarily as this spawning area, but definitely it will work that way. So.
Yeah. Right. So.
Together with Germany, we have a very interesting program concerning these fish spawning areas, and it's also a combination with to help to get out of the river. So it's funny. We threw about many 10,000 tons of gravel and sand into the River Rhine. It's a big cooperation with Germany. It takes about, I don't know, 15 years or so. And just because we realized that we lost these spawning areas, because we have just the border of the river, and then it's deep also for fish, for ships. Okay, in this part of the River Rhine, it's also for ships. And then studies, and they throw in a lot of gravel, and it worked not bad because the river is taking away the gravel and the sand and deposing it somewhere. And exactly there we have now good results. But the program is really costly.
And then it's just by the natural working of the water that you have it. The water makes in the most still areas this benefit. Yeah. And it wasn't a problem for the ships then, that in some areas there was too much buildup? Yeah.
In Flanders, we have done similar actions, but not on rivers, where there are ships passing by. So only on smaller rivers with no ships. There we have also put in borders and connected meanders and so on.
We can continue to the next slide. So this, does anyone have this again? Same question, where you have the unnatural waterways, but you try to make them natural again, just on the small parts you are able to. So it's like the fauna exit space, but not a technical solution, but really trying to make it natural. Yeah.
We in the Netherlands, we have a lot of different kinds of that stuff. Even fauna exits, and that's the real name. It's my I think it's not a fauna passage because the name tells it are exits.
Yeah.
It don't have drinking. How did you call that? No victims, drawing victims. In the Netherlands, we have a bridge over a canal for salamander, and that's a passage. I put it there. But some people thought an exit is a fauna passage, and I'm not agree with it. I don't know if you, yes?
We'll come to that again. Slides. Yeah, check.
We are lucky we have almost everything. So we have also this, but somehow it's a result of big floods in 1997 mostly.
Yeah.
Because many of formerly canalized rivers were destroyed by that floods. And, law was telling you have to repair to a former state. But, for example, in North Moravia, some of river section later, let's say the group of experts decided, okay, in this section, you let it as it is, or with some, just some small help of, let's say, buggers and whatever, they rebuild it little bit, but the result is that it looks and works and is ready in natural state.
Some floods.
Okay, floods are coming here because 4 days monsoon will make something new for us.
Yeah, we hope to get out of Czechia before that happens. Yeah, someone else who has something to add about this? Or we continue to the next one, maybe we can take those two together. So really the more technical fauna exit fauna ladders, who has those and any special constructions or thing. One thing we are thinking about is for the moment, so we also have these ladders for humans climbing out of the water if they get into problem, the safety ladders it's called for Bermudas. But for the moment, it's completely separate. So this is normal in constructing a waterway. These safety ladders are built every, I don't know the distance by heart, but it's kind of, and then we come and we try to build something where animals can exit. And we have been thinking about this. It should be possible to just have one construction and that it would be a natural thing if you renew part of the waterway, that you just have these constructions that can be used by humans and by animals. It's just a combined thing. And not only the safety ladders and the fauna exits, but for some of these waterways, we have kayaks going onto it. And also there are kayak exit spaces, or I don't know how it's called, built so the kayaks can come next to the banks, but those are really like concrete steps mostly, and then the people can get out, but it's still difficult for animals to come out because they have to take these big concrete steps and they still need to climb above the water level. And especially for the smaller species, it's not possible. So we are thinking, but we haven't done it yet. It would be very interesting to have this kind of design brainstorm, to have these combined things that can be used by kayaks and animals, or just safety ladders for people that animals can also use, or something, because that's often the case for us. We don't have a lot of room. The canal is too narrow to have two ships crossing and to put some construction on it, or we cannot come land inwards like here, because it's just a really narrow piece of grass before there's the tow path or the bike path. So if you have some specific examples of the really narrow or special things, that would also be very interesting. No, we won't have that yet. Okay, then we will continue. In places we put up these fauna ladders or the fauna exit spaces, there are, and it kind of lines up with what you were saying. So we have different thoughts about this. So what has been done in the future mostly is, so ideally we would just put always 2 exit spaces across from each other and do that like every 50 meters or so, but that would be very costly. It's not possible everywhere. So we need to think cost efficiently what is best. And in the past, a lot of these exit places were built like put one here, then put one, how do you call it, staggered on the other side. And again, because then you have like, you can, if you only can build like 10 of these measures, you have more chance that an animal will see one of these exits, and you can cross more distance. The downside can be that if you have this and you put them across from each other, so an animal going into the water can just cross and get out on the other side. But this is, in this way, it would act sort of like a defragmentation measure. Not an ideal defragmentation measure, we are very aware of that, but you do have animals who use it like this, and who are smart enough to cross on locations like this. And this they can see there's a possibility on the other side. If it's located further on, then they cannot see it. So I'm very curious, people who already are installing this, how you go about doing this, and what's the distance you place between measures, because in our case, we mostly say like 300 meters between for big animals and 150 meters for smaller animals. In some cases, even the smaller ladders every 50 meters if there are small animals, you know. But also it's also linked to the width of the waterway, because like the Albert Canal, if you have like 130 meters wide waterway, it's not, you don't have to build every 50 meters an exit, because the small animals will not make it anyway. So very curious. Yes.
Well, so I'm just thinking, I mean, you're saying animals, but I think you need to think of, to consider which kind of species, what are the focal species here for in these situations. Are we talking about ungulate species, roe deers, deers? Is it large carnivores, smaller carnivores? I mean, the carnivores in general, they have way easier to process and understand. That is, I worked quite a lot with both ungulates and carnivores in Sweden, and I would say that carnivores in general have easier to process and understand than the ungulates. And they're also much easier to climb and so forth. But I must say, I think you need to be careful about both carnivores and ungulates to be able to interpret that that's the spot where I should have an exit, because we have created something that we say this is an exit, and most probably it's not the primary thing that the animals are searching for. And in that case, I I hesitate a little bit on the left picture you have, that if we do it like this, then they can just see it and it will go straight over. I don't know. I mean, if it would be a natural barrier, still they would. I think that they quite often would not go, on a perpendicular direction straight over the water body. They would go in all different angles.
Yeah.
So I would with bad alternatives, I would go for the right one, since you will cover more distance. But also, it would make sense that you don't do these efforts everywhere, right? You first map that this is where we have more wildlife in the area, and then you look at, tree lines, forested areas. But I think you need to decide on what are the focal species there. You have lots of large mammals that are avoiding open grounds. Others, for sure, want the forested areas. And, I mean, you need to be. It's often also back home where I work. People do not. The management is not deciding on really. They're talking about wildlife or something, and then we often end up working with moose as the focal species, and that's for sure not the best to do all across the country.
Yeah, we don't have moose. So
no, I know. I know you don't. I know you don't.
No.
But I mean, you need a.
But it's just, these are really so there's a process proceeding this. So we do have a lot of studies and species protection programs that already say these are the problem areas. So where our Natura 2000 area crosses, or where we have forests on both sides, and large forests on both sides, or where we know that we have a lot of probability for otter habitat on both sides, and otter has already is already coming back to Belgium. So we have studies saying you have to act on that part of the waterway, and usually we do know what species, but of course it evolves, because the wolf we had drowning in the Alberts Canal, this was not foreseen in the studies that were made years before, that the wolves would come back to Belgium. So in some areas, like for instance, we are building some new of these fauna exit spaces and fauna ladders this year. And in some locations, we knew this is only for otter, because here we only have to build something for beaver and otter, but it was mainly focused on the otter habitats. So then we know, okay, just the small ladders is enough and they can swim. So it doesn't have to be too close together. They just have to have some possibilities to climb out again. But whenever we have situations like really large forest areas on both sides, then it's, I think, nearly always for a range of animals. So the roe deers, the foxes, the hares, everything that lives in the forest. So then we try to build something that focuses on all the species. Yeah.
I wanna give some also question, because we use in kind of naturalization, renaturalization of waterways and rivers, some wood, drowning wood and pieces of trees and something. Mostly we let them stay there and not take them out. But these trees, either you let them or you install them, still can work as kind of defragmentation, even because they change condition inside that water river or water canal, and also they can work as a natural ladder outside. But I'm not sure if it's type you can use or not, because in such canal I'm sure you cannot. Yeah, but in some that channelized rivers, maybe if they are bigger. Yeah, so okay, just idea to think about maybe.
Yeah. But we are looking, because it's about, it's not always the animal doesn't see it as a possible exit because they're looking for other visual triggers or something. We're also thinking about how can we, so for instance, we're trying, but it's also not easy because of safety issues, because we almost every time have these tow paths next to the canal, but those are also bike paths. And for the safety of the bikers, this vegetation cannot be too long or too big because then it comes across the bike path and it's, so we are trying every time, we would like every exit space to have some larger vegetation around it. So animals can aim for, oh, that looks like a piece of small shrub or something where I can maybe climb out. And then they come there and see, okay, they climb out. But we have no idea if there are other solutions.
What I want to ask is, don't you have to take in account the current of the waterway?
Yeah.
Because I think they won't swim right over it, but you have to think about the line of the current and yeah.
Yeah, that's
It's
also a good question. What current is too much for animals to take or not, and out of the canal, and there's much to take into account, and we don't really have a lot of data supporting really this swimming behavior of the different kind of animals.
So I was thinking about jump outs on along roads. That is something people work with. There's a lot of experience around the world from it, and we have it a lot in Sweden too. And the problem is that wildlife then, as we're a little bit talking about here too, they have the issue of finding the exit, these escape ramps and so forth. And quite often, the transport administration, they have, if the road is on a higher area than the surroundings, then it's quite easy to create these jump outs. But if it's a flat area, they create this, you create a pit, like a hill, and so that the wildlife will need to go up and then jump out. And I highly question I hesitate that would work to do that, because most ungulates and carnivores, they will not go for aiming high. They're aiming towards the ground when escaping. They want to go underneath the fences, for instance. And that's why, I do not have any experience with having mammals swimming in the water and how to escape. I don't have any expertise on it. But thinking about how it works on land, I would guess that when they're in the water and trying to get out, I don't think that they would go for, there's a lot of bushes there and not there, and go for the bushes. I think they would go for, is there anything anywhere where it looks like, not an obstacle to get out? So I would guess that if you would create some fake screens along this water, making it look so it looks like even more like, this is a dead end. It's there's no exit there. And then there some, you understand what I mean?
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, you make it like the
exactly. Yeah.
Visually.
Yeah. If you could get that impression for wildlife, then I think it would be easier for wildlife too.
Yeah, it's a good theory, but one I have been looking around the internet for everything I could find about articles ever been written on this subject, and it's really, and we will come to this, but if anyone has any research about this or research plans, I would be very interested. Because we are planning to do our own research next year, in which we want to go and monitor some of these fauna exit spaces, but it's very difficult to know how to approach this. But one article I did came across and was really interesting was an article from some German authors from 1978. So, and they conducted the research, and it was really something we couldn't do today, and we wouldn't want to do today, because they took several kinds of species of animals, went to a swimming pool, a real story, just built something like a ramp to let them exit the water and just threw them into the water one by one to see if then this ramp could have several slopes, depths in the water, and to test if they would climb out or not. It's not something we want to do, of course, but it was very interesting because they did get a lot of results about how good the animals went to these constructions to climb out when they're in the water, and also the depths underneath the water and what is possible to climb out for the several species. If they didn't make it out, they were connected to this kind of construction that they could lift them out. So they did get them out of the water again. And then especially the follow-up, because they concluded in their article for the first research step that, of course, this was an unnatural situation in a swimming pool. And then they went into this piece of canal, which wasn't used anymore, so no ships passing through. And they made like a raft with some tree branches and leaves on it to really investigate which kind of animals really go for that instead of going to the slope. And then they saw that, for instance, roe deers, they go directly for the bush construction that they are seeing. But this is the only research I have found about this, so I have no idea if there are new data on it.
That would be like natural thing for an animal to, there's not that deep water there, and I will make my exit there. I think that sounds really good. To try out some floating devices or something with.
Maybe I will continue because I have to keep track of time. So this is just the typical situation we have in Flanders with these very narrow spaces also we have between the water and then the bike path. So it's difficult to find the best solution, but I think we already covered this. Just a quick question on this slide. Who has this kind of roadside bridges or maybe an ecoduct or a canal bridge in their country? The larger constructions over the water? You have them in the Netherlands? Yeah. Okay, so then we will continue to a different topic that I really would like to address with you, and that is, if you see on the left, it's again an ecoduct over road, and then it's a bit simplified image, but mainly what we do, what everyone does, I think, working around roads, we put up fencing so animals cannot cross here, and they are guided towards the safe passage. So that's very logical. But we have no idea, like for instance, if we have this waterway and we will build an overpass over it, how do we guide the animals to this overpass? Because in our idea, we cannot just fence these waterways, because then the water birds will get into problem because they cannot go in and out the water. And also the fact that we have these bike paths. And so are there other differences, problems that you see?
I would again say that you first need to then decide on what is the function you want to have with that overpass. Are you only considering large mammals, or is it fauna and insects and reptiles? Or because if you go for insects and fauna, more like an ecoduct, you need a bigger overpass, so you can you have both tree lines, hopefully, or at least bushes, and you have some open areas representing different habitats, so you can make it attractive for different species. If it's only large mammals, both for sure, carnivores, they can go for really narrow passage widths, and that can also ungulate species. Most of them do too. I don't know if you have a road area in Flandern. I would say that if you have like a 50 or 60 meter long overpass, I don't think it would be need to be have a
wider passage width than 5 meters or something. And then you can have, I mean, easy, smaller constructions, not that extremely expensive as aqueducts. And by doing so, you would not only, of course, then you have money to have several, because regardless how nice the aqueduct will be, it will only be used within a home range area for, say, road airs. And that means if you move a couple of kilometers along this water barrier, those road are living there, they will not have access to this aqueduct. They will not understand that if I continue to walk, I will get to it. We will never get to that. I mean, so that is one thing you definitely, you need to, it's important to think about those things when planning these measures. Then I would like to say something about when you are deciding on the, okay, this is the area, and we have, and also think about that. I mean, you know, nature is dynamic, and I must stress that it's a good thing, obviously, to go for several species to use something, because 10 years later, then you have a different fauna, perhaps, to adjust.
Yeah.
And anyways, so what you Flandern, I guess you don't have, you're a pretty flat country, I guess. You don't have that much of valleys, and which is, because otherwise that kind of permanent topography and features is important to go for, because most wildlife, they are not going up and down. They are following the valleys, they are following the ridges. Perhaps you have tree lines and other, these kind of linear features are important to steer wildlife towards. This is what my experience is from Sweden.
We have it naturally we have river valleys. They're not as valley-like like in other countries, but they are valleys. But then, for instance, we have this river valley, and we know a lot of animals are following the river, but then it comes across.
Right.
And then is the big question, like, we know there is a lot of animal species following this river, but what do we do there at the canal? So,
and also this thing that you can have a lot of wildlife walking up towards the fence, in that picture, the left picture there, along the fence, along the highway. And I would guess that you can have even more so towards next to a water body, if there's interesting food and cover for mammals there. And then, of course, it's important that you have a solid fence with not too big mesh sizes, so they will not, because we need you are forcing wildlife to get to this place. And what else? I had something else I was thinking of. Sorry about it.
yeah, I had the problems, questions about this on this slide as well, but yeah, okay.
I think the canal itself is the fence, because a lot of animals can swim, but a lot of animals don't like to swim, because then too much energy. And the canal itself is the fence, is the guiding line. I think.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know, because there are data, for instance, for roe deer choosing to cross through a lake, natural lake, instead of going around it, because sometimes they do see it. The water is the easiest way. So I really don't know if there are a lot of data about this, or just questions I have.
But maybe the height of the walls can make a difference between animals jumping.
Yeah.
Not to jumping.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Depending
If
on
we cannot guide them towards the exits, and it's the same as what you said, can we do something to make it clear? Don't go in here. It's danger. We have something we can use to make that clear to the animals.
And I was thinking about fences on the walls, but then you guide them into the water. And when they don't find the opposite side, it's a problem.
Yeah, and fences on the walls are again a problem for the birds. So then,
Yeah.
it's difficult.
Yeah, but when it's a steep, and it's a wall, then the birds also can't get out of
The bigger water birds can fly out, but because this is in fact also an issue, young water birds also drown in the canals because they cannot fly out. So they follow the mother in. The mother can fly out. The young water birds don't follow. So one of the species they threw into the swimming pool and the canal as well for this German study. Okay. Another very interesting thing is so we think if we cannot put up these fences or guiding, or it remains difficult, we need to put up a lot of these fauna exits or cross or overpasses and well spread, but this also makes it difficult. We have some really specific challenges for monitoring, and of course we know it's a problem. We know it's a problem. We have animals drowning. We have no connection, so we want to do something about this. And for the moment, the easiest solution for preventing these drowning victims is to build a lot of these fauna exit spaces. If we want to do this, we need to get money from our government to be able to do this. To get money, they will ask us, do you have data supporting this? Do you have research? Do you have monitoring that these constructions work? And we also want to know it, like, does it work? Which kinds of constructions are the better ones? How, of course, fauna exit is a lot cheaper than building an overpass. How much better will a fauna overpass work? So these are all questions we are facing. And so we do want to monitor the constructions we already have. And for the overpasses, it's easy. We can just put up a few cameras where they cross and it's okay. But specifically for these fauna exits, it's really difficult because we cannot put, like, if you have a part of the canal, like 50 of these exits, it's difficult to put up 50 cameras. Also because it's very prone to vandalism because of these bike paths crossing. We also have these wave movements every time the ship passes, branches flow into the exit spaces. So we have a very high risk for false positives. So I was really curious if anyone has any data supporting which constructions do or don't work. Any ideas about how we could go about monitoring things like this or prove it without throwing animals into a swimming pool? Because we are thinking of doing a research about this next year, but we are struggling with how, when, and who, and so it is a difficult topic. Yes. No, all input is good input. If I know nobody has the data, then we know that, and then we have to think of our own approach. But
still very expensive, but have you looked into infrared sensors? Because they won't get false positives by motion, but it's very expensive.
Yeah, I thought about that. Infrared sensors or just the heat signal. It would be a solution, but I have no idea if this is something you can use on a large scale for monitoring, if that has been done.
So I've used exactly infrared beam to, I used it to register the cars and then to relate that with wildlife visits when they were coming to, well, ordinary wildlife passages or crossing sites. And if you now would have exits that have a really long passage width, I mean, you don't know really what type of design or anything you will use, but I would definitely say that that would make sense.
Yeah.
That you have that, and you have that as a trigger for the camera.
Yeah.
That the beam is broken, and then you take photos. However, the only downside I see with that is you don't get the photos if animals has been there.
trying and not used it, because that would be extremely important.
We would have to have that information as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And please consider that if you create overpasses, don't only put cameras on the top of that.
No.
You must
So
have some
slopes and yeah.
Yeah, so you get the visits. Good. Yes.
Okay, if later on someone has any insights or ideas about this, please, please tell us. Okay. Yeah. So same question. We already covered this. Also, yeah. If we find the right technology, are there any very good ideas about how to secure this, so we don't have a lot of vandalism? Because we're also very afraid about this. We will be able to find the technology, but if we have these expensive cameras and we put them up along the bike paths, it would be also very difficult.
In Flanders, do you if you have cameras out, do you need to have a permit to have the cameras out there, or?
And I think Katja can answer that one better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you have the people.
So,
yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean, in Sweden, private citizens, they can put up cameras wherever they want, but when the state or university or anyone is doing it, they can only do it if the public has not access. And an ecoduct would fall under we have treated that as public has not access. They are not, right, exactly. It doesn't need to be excluded by fences or anything, but if you have it like along these pathways for bikers and stuff, could be more tricky. Because I'm just asking because otherwise, and if there are permits required, we also have to put up signs and everyone will see the camera.
Yeah.
But if you can get rid of that, interpret that, well, there will not be public access around these exits, then you can hide the cameras at least. Because we have lots of problems. Or regardless how much locks and stuff I have, they are stolen.
Yeah.
And so
the same now.
Yeah. Right. Yes. Yeah. Sure. And so you need also so that you are not if you are suffering from the theft. It's a good thing that you have cameras that will automatically email or SMS send the data, so at least you will not get through. Yeah. And also on ecoduct, since it's quite expensive, one way to secure that land use is not destroying the area, the surroundings around it. It's a good thing to have nature reserves established. Some hundreds of meters on either side of these ecoducts.
Yeah. We have this one aqueduct, and what it seems to be working really well. We have these large cattle. Does anyone know the English name? At the Munt, you have this think about it. Highland Hooglanders, yeah, things. So kind of cows. So you have they are grazing the area on both sides, I think, this one side of the aqueduct, and there is just this barbed wire fencing for keeping the cows in. But they are really impressive animals, with horns, so people could cross it if they really want to, but they don't do it because they're a bit afraid of the horny creature. But all the other animals do cross. So it's not a barrier for any other animals, but it keeps the people out. So I think that's really good example of how you can manage people. And there, apparently, it hasn't been a problem of people accessing it. Or that's what.
So the state has stipulated that people are not allowed access.
Yeah.
People, they still walk there.
Yeah, probably. I would think so.
Yeah.
If you say no access, then yeah. Even naked people. Okay. So if anyone comes across an article that could be interesting, what did I say? Yeah, it's just the same question really. We need to prove it to get money to start building a lot of these constructions, but how do we prove it works? It remains a big problem. Are there any other ideas for research we could do aside from just monitoring what we already have? How we could test or institutions we can contact to learn more about swimming behavior of wild animals, or for instance, data about how long will an animal in some research. I read that roe deer, for instance, if they come into water, they will swim like 150 meters to one side, and then they turn back and go looking for 150 meters on the other side. And this is actually where the 300-meter distance between our measures comes from. But I have no idea this is something that is who has come up with this, or no idea. And yeah, this is, yeah. Yeah, but roe deer can also swim longer, but apparently this would be the behavior, but I don't have clear articles, clear references about this. I read it. I read it in defragmentation, but it's not about the distance itself, but apparently, as it is described in this defragmentation studies, it's just a panic behavior, like, oh, we don't see an exit, and then they would start swimming back and forward, and eventually they can swim like 2 kilometers, but they would go back and forth. But no idea if this kind of research even exists, or
I don't know if you have any research on it, but it's two different things. I'm talking about natural, not stressed animals.
Yeah.
And they cover huge distances.
Yeah.
And if they are hunted and disturbed, of course, I mean, then you can simply, I would say, I question that you cannot plan for that. I mean, then you have whatever things can happen. They can force 3-4 meter high fences when they are stressed.
Yeah. Okay. We are coming to the end of our time, but just some takeaways. So we know you all want me to end this meeting, but just one thing: is there something you will remember of this session? You can write it on the paper or just shout it through the room. Add something. And also, please answer the question if you are interested in further knowledge exchange about the subject. Also, the question, would it be interesting to have a working group at the IENE about this? Maybe if we can involve more countries, if we can have a separate session about this, an online session sometime. Like I know there's for the railways a different working group now, for instance. Maybe we need to have it for the waterways. Someone want to comment on that? Just write it. Yeah, I would also really like it. I will suggest it to IENE. So if some people would please answer yes to this question, then I can ask at IENE, please. The conclusion of our working group was that it would be very interesting to have a working group about it. And if you have any other thoughts, you can write it on the paper, and then my presentation is finished. And I thank you very much for your attention, for your cooperation. Please hand the forums back to me. We will gather everything together. And on the last slide, so the last piece of paper is also my contact information, so you can just rip it off or take a picture or write it. And if you have anything else interesting, please send it to me. I would very much like. Thank you very much.